علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا زدنا من فضلك علما نويت التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والاندفاع والإفادة والإفادة والحث والتمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير وتواضع وجه الله سبحانه وتعالى مرضاته وقربه وثوابه. قال المؤلف رحمه الله تعالى نفعنا الله به وعلمه وعلم السلف الصالحين في الدارين ورضي الله عنهم. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. سبحان الله والحمد سبحان الله العظيم. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد السالم من الجاري واجمعنا به بكل أطهارنا وعلى صحبه برضا سيدنا تعرش من ذلك الكلمات عدد كل حرف كتب ويكتب وقرئ ويقرأ وسمع ويسمع ورؤي ويرى أبد الأبد مدح والداهمين. The author then goes on to say, where did we stop? Sorry?
He is exalted, is loving, is all-knowing, is better.
Okay. وأنه تعالى حي عالم مجيد قادر متكلم سميع بصير يعلم خائنة الأعين وما تخفي الصدور ويعلم السر وأخفى خالق كل شيء وهو الواحد القهار. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the exalted, is loving, all-knowing, He is speaker, hearer, and seer. He is knower of the treachery of the eye and what the hearts conceal or what the chests conceal. He knows all the secrets and that which is even more hidden. He is the creator of everything and He is the one, the subduer. And so we come now to the sifat and the qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the scholars basically have divided the basic qualities which is incumbent on a person to believe about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning when a person thinks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a person has to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees, because Allah described Himself as one who sees. A person has to believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as one who hears, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described Himself. And then they divided this into 20 qualities. 7 of these qualities are similar to each other, which make 14. And then there are 5 qualities which negate their opposites. So for example, if we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mukhalifatun lil hawadith, He is unlike anything in existence, that negates the belief that Allah is like something in existence. And so these 20 qualities basically we'll do them in greater detail in the higher books. This, because this is a primer, we'll just indicate towards them. However, we will do the basic qualities inshallah, as is mentioned by Habib Ahmad Zain al-Habashi. And so what he says is that Allah is exalted, He is living. A person has to believe that Allah is living. Allah describes Himself as Al-Hayy, the one who is living. Okay, and this negates non-existence. Allah is living, the all-knowing, alimun, knower of everything. And the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encompasses everything in existence. Allah's knowledge is not like our knowledge. Allah knows everything from the beginning of time till the end of time. He is the creator of time. And Allah knows the general and the detail. There were some groups of Muslims that came once upon a time and they were of the opinion that Allah knows only things in their generalities and not in their specifics. And this is a bid'ah, because Allah says there is not a leaf that falls except that He is aware of it. So the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes beyond what even we can understand. What you say is equally knowable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as what passes in your mind. Night and day with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the same. That you speak something openly or you keep it secret in your heart is exactly the same for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is the creator of time. So His knowledge of you as a person is not just as you are now, but everything that happened to you and everything that was the end result. What will you pass away with? So they say the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of Sayyidina Umar when he was still or hadn't yet accepted Islam. Before he accepted Islam, was Sayyidina Umar loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not? Was he loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not? Of course, because Allah's knowledge of him is not just like our knowledge because of what he's doing now, but Allah already knew the end result and that he would accept Islam and become one of the greatest people in the history of humankind. And so what's very important to know here is that Allah's knowledge of you is not where you are at this moment in time. Allah's knowledge of you is everything that happened and will happen to you until your last breath. And so there was a certain, and also Allah's knowledge of you is about certain things which you yourself might not even know and might not have manifested from you, but Allah knows that were He to put you in a certain situation, how you would behave. There was a certain worshipper in the time of Bani Israel, and he used to be involved in lots of acts of obedience in worship, but he never found the sweetness in that worship. He never found closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some narrations say that maybe he worshipped for 500 years. And so he complained to the Prophet of his time that he's been worshipping for so long and he hasn't actually gotten anywhere. And so the Prophet of that time, when he implored Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was told that even if this person had to worship for another 500 years, it would not benefit him. And he was asked why. And the reply was that out of my mercy, I have kept him involved in just the surah, in just the surah, we say just the external ritual forms of worship. But I know that were I had to test him with a woman, he would not hesitate to fall into haram with her. And he has no stature in my eyes. And so out of mercy, Allah can keep us involved with rituals, but truly deep down, He knows that were I to test this person with this or that or whatever, he wouldn't hesitate to disobey me. And our tests are different. Some people are tested with wealth. They might never look at anything haram. They might perform all the acts of ibadah and worship. But when it comes to money, or when it comes to their business dealings, they cannot refuse even a few dollars or a few rands or a few cents, and they might then deceive or do a bad deal. Their business dealings bring out who they are. And there are other people who might not steal a single cent, but when it comes to women, or for women when it comes to men, they cannot resist to fall into haram. And it's like they don't know the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They might fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with regards to everything else, but when it comes to this particular issue, they don't. And other people might not look at haram and they might not do anyone down. They might not steal even a single dollar or rand or cent. But when it comes to status and being in the front, or that their name and fame is at stake, then they cannot resist to do anything to protect that stage. And so these are the destructions of mankind. And every person is close or far to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala depending on how they interact with these three major destructive qualities. And all the other destructive qualities fall under these three things: the love of wealth, the love of status, and the love of woman. And for the opposite would go as well. Define our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and every person is dealing with these three things in different ways. Okay, and all the other spiritual diseases, anger, malice, jealousy, hatred, all of these things fall under one of these three major categories. And so when Allah knows who we are, Allah knows you not because, oh Allah, I'm worshipping you now and I have done good today. Allah knows what's going to happen 10 years from now, and that were He to test you with something, whether you would pass or you would fail. And the awliya are the awliya because Allah knows that were He to test them with anything on the face of the earth, and the worst trials and temptations that they would never prefer anyone over Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the deepest of hearts, they have such a love and connection and reverence for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they cannot bear to even disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The father of the Prophet ﷺ, Sayyidina Abdullah radiallahu anhu, before he married Sayyidina Amina, and it was already known in the scriptures before that an Arab prophet would come. And so even the soothsayers and if we can call them the witches of that time, they were aware of something, there's a prophet about to come. And so one of these sorceresses, if we can call them that, soothsayer, she noticed in Sayyidina Abdullah this light, and she perceived that he was the carrier of the light of the person who would be the prophet, the last prophet. And so when she would see Sayyidina Abdullah, when he used to walk past every day, she would offer herself to him in a haram way. She'd say, I'll give you 100 camels if you do this and that with me. And she wanted to be a carrier of that light. And then he would recite some lines of poetry in the Arabic language. The khulasa, the summary of that is, that he would say that a man protects his honor. A man protects his honor. أَمَّا الْحَرَامُ فَالْمَمَاتُ دُونَهَا. As for something which is haram, I would prefer to die than to fall into haram. And this was even before the beginning of Islam. So we can see the chivalry and the honor, which even was in the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ. And we know in the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ that there was not a single generation that fell into haram. So they would even say, أَمَّا الْحَرَامَ فَالْمَمَاتُ دُونَهَا. I would rather die than to do something which is against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. And then when he got married to Sayyidina Amina, obviously the nur was then transferred to Sayyidina Amina. And when he walked past her the next day, after he got married, she didn't call him or didn't entice him or tempt him. And so he was surprised, and he asked her why, and he says, the light that was on your forehead now has been transferred. And I was hoping to be the one that was. But obviously Allah would not choose except the most purest of wombs for the Prophet ﷺ. And so the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the knowledge about us, about things which we don't even know. And it's a knowledge which makes one extremely humble, but extremely fearful as well. We don't know what Allah knows about us, which can be putting us into His anger or into His wrath because of something He knows that we might do in the future. And likewise in the other way, perhaps we might look at someone who is maybe not obedient or not on the right path, but Allah has knowledge about this person, about something that they will do, or a quality that they have in their hearts, and because of that He loves this person. The knowledge of Allah doesn't necessarily mean that the person will or will not do that. Allah knows, were He to test you, or were a person to be put under certain circumstance, how would you have responded? And that's the knowledge of Allah about ourselves. It means we really don't know who we are. And in our worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are completely at loss because we don't know. Are we on the right or are we on the wrong? Will we be in this state forever or will we not be? And therefore the dua is always that Allah should not test us, and that Allah should always envelope us with His mercy and forgive us. وَلَا يُعَامِلْنَا بِقِسْطِ عَدْلِ. We ask Allah to treat us and deal with us through His rahmah and His mercy and not through His justice. And then we say, the dua they make, Allahumma qabalna bima fina. Accept us with all of our faults and all of our shortcomings. Because if you are accepted in the court of Allah, if you are accepted, then there's smooth sailing after that. And Allah doesn't want us to be perfect human beings. Allah wants us just to try. So if Allah accepts us with our shortcomings, then that is a great gain. And so He is the exalted, the living, the all-knowing. He wills and is able. Muridun qadirun. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills something according to his knowledge, and then His power or His ability, brings that thing into existence. And so the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the irada, the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all interact to make things happen. Nothing can happen in the universe against the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills is in His knowledge. And these qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if one has to ponder over them, great meanings can open up to someone, and a lot of time can be spent if one just ponders. And if one wants to ponder over whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, as the Prophet said, we cannot ponder over whom Allah is. No one can understand Allah's essence, but we ponder over His creation and His qualities. And if we read the works of Imam Ghazali as well, Imam Ghazali has a book about the 99 names of Allah. How should one ponder over the qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And so Allah is world is only He wills and is able. He is the speaker, hearer, and seer. Allah is mutakallimun, sami'un, basirun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks. His speech is the Quran, and His speech is also the Hadith al-Qudsi, which has reached us from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He hears everything and He sees. The Hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears النملة السوداء على صخرة الصماء في ليلة الظلماء. Allah hears the footsteps of the black ant on a smooth rock in the darkest of nights. Has an ant have a footstep? But Allah knows the footstep. Does a mosquito's beating of its wings have a sound?
No.
Allah can hear that as well. So Allah's knowledge goes into things. And why it's important to even study the science of creation and the bee and the ant and their worlds, and you become amazed at the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all of this in the intelligence that Allah gave the ant and the bee and the dolphin and this and that, and the communities that they live in and how they organize themselves. We're studying the creation, but it makes us magnify who? The Creator. And so by studying science can actually become a form of worship, because we are studying science to get to know the Creator. And actually, I think it was Einstein, or one of the scientists of the past, or one of the scientists was making a critique of modern day science, and he said in the past the scientists studied science to get to know the Creator, and today science is studied to want to disprove the existence of the Creator. And so when one studies science, it cannot lead one except to believe that there is a greater power out there. And one is completely flabbergasted, especially if one studies astronomy, the stars, and just trying to fathom the sizes of the planets and the galaxies, and it's absolutely mind-boggling. Okay, and one gets closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when one recognizes that Allah is the creator of all these wonderful things. So He is the speaker, the hearer, and the seer. He is the knower of the treachery of the eye and what is hidden in the chest. يَعْلَمُ خَائِنَةَ الْأَعْيُنِ وَمَا تُخْفِي الصُّدُورُ. This is a verse of the Quran. خَائِنَةُ الْأَعْيُنِ. What is the treachery of the eye? The treachery of the eye can be that someone is looking at something which is haram, okay, which the eye is not supposed to fall upon. And this doesn't necessarily mean looking at the opposite gender. It could even mean looking with disdain at another believer, or any creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One looks at disdain and thinks, I'm better than such and such a person. Also, the sins of the eye, the treachery of the eye, can be looking at the dunya with the eye of esteem. Allah has said that this dunya and whatever it contains does not weigh in His sight or in His estimation the weight of a mosquito. And this we should bring to mind when we, our youth, they like to have these pictures of their smart cars, of these houses, things of the dunya. People put it on their WhatsApp statuses or on their profile pictures, and this car or that car or this house or that house or whatever it is, in the eyes of Allah, that has absolutely no estimation. Even if there were a million or a billion cars like it is, then that is also a form of a sin. You are giving estimation to something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has absolutely no concern for. Whether you drove this car or that car, what does it mean? We are esteeming what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has despised. Prophet ﷺ walked past a corpse, a rotting corpse of a sheep, and he asked the Sahaba their opinion about that. He says that is the parable of the dunya. You're running after the dunya, and your esteeming of the dunya is in reality the esteeming of a rotten corpse. Habib Umar in Tarim, he drives, people would give him cars, and a lot of people look at the way he's, alhamdulillah, Allah has opened up for him now, but he had a very, very difficult life in the beginning, where sometimes he wouldn't even have lunch. He would have to eat biscuits for lunch, or a biscuit for lunch. And now he drives, it's almost like a nice 4x4 in Tarim, and obviously the roads, they are very rough, so it's easy for him to get from place to place. So anyway, one day his car got stolen by some tribes in the Hadramaut. So and his car now, unfortunately, the people that are around, some of the people even that are not, but they follow Habib online, they always want to know like what's Habib wearing, the car that he's driving, and these are things which shouldn't concern a person, right? Imam al-Haddad says that this is the natural way of people, is they are concerned of the external. So when they look at even of the awliya, and we look at even people that follow, it's the same thing when it happens when people follow pop stars and singers and this and that. What are they wearing? What are they eating? What are they driving? Okay, but no one looks at that pop star and driver and says, you know what, he slept the night in a drunken state. His breath was extremely foul. He's involved in such transgressions and sins and whatever it is. No one looks at that. And with the awliya, when they look at the awliya, how many people think, I wish I could have the yaqeen of Habib Umar. I want to emulate him in his yaqeen, in his qiyamul layl, emulate him in his good character, emulate him in his charity. Okay, so the human nature wants to always attach itself to the externals first, and this is a sign of people, and you can see that the spiritual levels, and even when Allah wants good for a person, what does He make them attached to in the beginning? Even when it comes to religious figures, are people attached to the external and the ephemeral, or are people attached to their internal? Many people, when you hear about certain things, they say, "Oh, but Imam Malik, you asked him for an opinion. Why are you doing this?" They say, "Oh, but so such and such a scholar had this opinion." Okay, so they want to follow the scholar in that opinion. They don't know that scholar was. So we say, okay, so why don't you follow this scholar in his reading of 10 juz every night in tahajjud, and he's fasting every single day. So we are always attached to the external. So when the authorities came to question Habib, and he's been driving this car for like a whole year, every day, whatever, and so they come and they ask him, and so the name of the car, and everyone looks at the khadim and he says, "What's the name of the car?" And he replies, "It says the color of the car." What's the color of the car? And he's asking for details about the car, and Habib Umar doesn't know. Doesn't know the details. And it's not like he's pretending. It doesn't concern them. Absolutely doesn't concern them. Habib Muhammad al-Haddar would say that when he studied, even I think it was in the Ribat of Tarim, whatever, if you asked him how many windows were in, and he was there for 4 or 5 years, if you asked him how many windows were there in the institute, he says he wouldn't even know that. So to be completely not concerned about, be unconcerned with the dunya. And obviously there's different levels, and when we read and learn about the lives of the salihin and the pious, then we are able to align our own lives and see how far we are from the true reality. So Allah knows the treachery of the eye, the hearts, what the hearts conceal. Obviously this is a whole chapter, what the hearts conceal, the thoughts that go through your mind. Okay, the disdain that a person might have in their hearts for certain people. Okay, and what's the worst thing, as we said before, is what Allah knows, which we are not yet even aware of about ourselves. And one of the beauties of the path of Tasawwuf is that and the true path of Tasawwuf is that it's concerned with this internal, with this rectification of the heart. And once a person takes it upon themselves to want to rectify their heart, they are always looking for their faults. Sayyidina Umar would say, "May Allah have mercy on the one who points out to me my faults." How often do we sit with our families, our friends, and sincerely ask people, please give me advice. What is it that I'm doing which is not correct? What are the faults that you see in myself? What can I fix up with regards to my character? Okay, and the books of Imam Ghazali or the third volume of the Ihya Ulumuddin is imperative in this regard to learn about the spiritual diseases. If you don't know the name and the definition of certain spiritual diseases, how are you going to know that that spiritual disease exists in you or not? And so the knowledge of it is first required to be able to make an examination and a diagnosis. If a doctor he comes across something in the body, but he has not been taught that this is a tumor, he can be looking at a tumor on the X-ray or on the CAT scan, but he won't know how to recognize it. This is actually a problem. Okay, so in the same way, if we don't know what the spiritual diseases are, how are we able to recognize that these actually exist within ourselves? And so we leave the tumor, we leave that small growth until it becomes into a tumor, and then it kills the person. And so the knowledge is the first step to the rectification of the heart. He knows the secrets, and what Allah knows the secrets and that which is even more hidden. يَعْلَمُ السِّرَّ وَأَخْفَى. Allah knows. So there are many different interpretations of sirra wa akhfa. The sir is, so they say we have our heart. The scholars of the heart say we have our heart, and within the heart there is the soul, and within the soul there is the sir. The sir. And then there are a different adhkar they would give to unlock. So the dhikr of the heart is La ilaha illallah. Okay, and the dhikr of the soul is Allah, Allah, and the dhikr of the sir is Hu. And some will go further and they'll say beyond the sir there is the sirru sir, the secret of the secret, or the innermost esoteric secret. And then beyond that, some would say beyond the sirru sir there is the akhfa, what is even more hidden. And this is when one goes into the philosophy and the terminologies of the Sufis, and they can learn some of these things, but it's not necessary to know these things for now. A person should just concern themselves with the purification of the heart, with the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointed out by these spiritual masters in what the Prophet ﷺ has taught us. So Allah knows the secrets and that which is even more hidden. The things, as we mentioned earlier, things which the heart might incline towards, which don't know, and we ourselves don't even recognize. And it's very, very, very humbling and also embarrassing when one, after many, many years, comes to realize that, oh, I've been doing this, or I've been doing that, or I have this quality or that quality, and you didn't even realize it. And now you have to start rectifying a lifetime of bad habits. And Imam Ghazali says a person will continue to start trying to rectify himself in years and years and years in mujahada to improve his character and get rid of his bad qualities. But even though he has expended all of his efforts, he still won't be able to. If Allah Himself has not decided to purify you of those destructive qualities, you will never be able to. And he says until a person decides, and this state can only be reached after one has striven for years and years, one gives up hope and says, Allah, I entrust the affair of my rectification to you. If you do not choose to rectify me, then I will be destroyed. And then it says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then manifests His name of Al-Qahhar on a person, and then all of his human qualities are subdued, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instills within him the manifestation of all the prophetic qualities and the good qualities with regards to the 99 names. And then this person then operates on the earth under the caring eye of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything that he does and he thinks and he speaks, okay, he becomes a walking manifestation of what it means to be someone who is close or a friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the creator of everything and he's the one, the subduer. خالق كل شيء وهو الواحد القهار. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created everything in existence, and He is the one, the subduer. Nothing escapes His grip. And the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are used in the certain verses of the Quran, Imam al-Razi would say that the secret of the meanings of the Quran lie within these names which Allah mentions after the certain verses. Allah mentions certain verses of the Quran, certain meanings, and then He says, وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ وَهُوَ الْوَاحِدُ الْقَهَّارُ وَهُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. The inner meanings of the Quran can be gleaned if one ponders over the names that Allah refers to after certain verses. This is obviously a whole science in its own. We've gone over time today. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. أسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى to grant us توفيق and understanding. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.